Jessie Marietta Blodgett was 19 years old. She studied theater at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee on a talent scholarship. Acting, musical theater, instruments, songwriting, anything creative belonged to her world. It always had. She pushed herself harder than anyone else could. In first grade, while other children spelled words like Jessie spelled metamorphosis. Her teacher had to create a separate curriculum just for her. She dreamed of becoming a choir director. She believed music could change the world. While working toward that goal, she started her own business teaching piano, voice, and violin to young people in Hartford. Within months, she had nearly 30 students. She volunteered every summer at the Central Middle School Orchestra. She campaigned for sustainable living, environmental issues, and violence against women. She worked every spare hour she could to earn extra money. July 14, 2013 was opening weekend for Fiddler on the Roof. Jessie played the fiddler. Every seat was full. The audience loved it. The cast left that Sunday on a high. The cast celebrated with a pool party at a house with a huge llama pen outside. Jessie was filmed at the poolside. She had her photo taken with the llamas. She seemed happy and smiley. She got back to her house alone at 1 in the morning. Her mom, Joy, said Jessie seemed upset. Jessie did not say much, but she told her the guys were always making passes, and she did not know why they always had to turn it there. Jessie said both men were fellow cast members in their 40s. One had tried to pull her onto his lap. She was so uncomfortable she wrote about it in her diary. "Think I am being corrupted. I think certain men are taking what should be platonic love and perverting it into a competition." She ended by saying she appreciated the loving support of those in her life. She would recognize problems and confront them without fear. God be with me. She closed the book and went to bed. A few hours later, it was 8 in the morning. Joy crept into her room to put some clothes away. Jessie was in bed and did not stir. She had had such a busy summer working, performing, and teaching. Joy shut the door and left for work, letting her sleep in. She returned just after noon. The house was silent. Jessie was supposed to be giving a piano lesson. Her student knocked on the door at 12:30. Since we're at 12:30. Joy called for her daughter. No answer. She went upstairs to her bedroom. Jessie was completely still. Joy said her name again. No response. Her usually messy bed was totally clean. The blanket was wrapped around her neatly. Joy walked around to the other side feeling weird. Something was not right. She tried to gently move her. That is when she realized her daughter was blue. There were ligature marks on her neck, deep abrasions on her wrists and ankles, as if she had been restrained. Jessie had been strangled to death before being positioned to make it look like she was sleeping. Her hair and clothes were soaking wet. Even all these hours later, it appeared she had been washed after she was killed. There were no signs of forced entry into the house or her room. No damage to the door or windows. A roll of tape was found underneath her bed. The tape matched the marks on her body. The tape had not been in the Blodgett house. Someone brought it there. She had been killed sometime around 9 in the morning. This was someone who knew the house, knew the family schedules, and knew Jessie would be asleep at that time. The fact they had waited around to stage the scene and wash her added more weight to this not being a random intruder. Before Jessie's murder, the small town of Hartford in Wisconsin had not seen a homicide in almost 30 years. Jessie's dad, Buck, said he thought it was as safe as it gets. There were 2 murders in Hartford in the 100 years before we moved. Jessie was the third. 12 News was live in Hartford that night. The latest from the Hartford Police Department was an email they received earlier that day. They had no updates on the investigation, but they wanted to stress there was no threat in the Hartford area. Several of Jessie's friends were interviewed. They said she had no enemies. They were trying to understand how this could have happened to her. Jacqueline was one of Jessie's best friends. They grew up together in Hartford. Jessie's parents asked her to paint a portrait of Jessie for her funeral. Jacqueline stayed up all night to do it. She said she wanted to paint her. She had always wanted to paint her. It was definitely a work of love. Jacqueline and her friends said learning of Jessie's murder was shocking. The 19-year-old was found dead in her bed by her mother more than a week earlier with strangulation marks on her neck. She had come home from a cast party for the local production of Fiddler on the Roof hours before. Jeremy Zellman was another friend from Hartford who studied music with Jessie at UZ Milwaukee. He was just sort of in denial. He could not imagine anybody who would wish anything ill against Jessie. Investigators interviewed the men from the cast party that Jessie had told her mom about. The 46-year-old who had pulled her onto his lap denied any involvement. He said his girlfriend would be really upset if she knew about how he behaved. Warrants were filed to search both his and Jessie's cell phone records. Jessie's Facebook data was also requested. Both men's phones put them well away from Jessie's house that morning. They were ruled out. They spoke to people at her work. Everyone there was cleared. While this investigation was going on in Hartford, authorities in nearby Richfield were looking into an attack on a woman in a park. This had happened just days before Jessie was found. Melissa had been out walking her dog when she was attacked from behind by a man holding a knife. She grabbed the blade and fought him off. He hastily drove away in his van. Melissa needed 15 stitches. Once out of hospital, she was ready to show detectives everything. She could give a really good description of her attacker, his vehicle, and what had happened in the park. She took the officers around the crime scene, describing everything from his face and build to where he had been parked. A white male, 18 to 20 years of age, 6'2", 210 pounds. He had light blonde hair with very fair skin. He had checkered shorts, plaid shorts, dark blue minivan, Dodge Caravan, an older model. The detective said she was the best witness he had ever interviewed. She could tell him absolutely everything so clearly. The vehicle she spoke about sounded familiar to one officer who regularly patrolled the park. He had spotted it in the parking lot several weeks before. Something about it had felt strange, so he ran the number plates, but it did not turn up anything suspicious. Now he knew his gut had been right. He had to track it down. The vehicle was linked to a couple in their 40s. Neither fit the description of Melissa's attacker. Their son, however, 19-year-old Daniel Bartelt, did. Daniel was called. He said he would come into the station. Interestingly, he did not want to even ask what they wanted to talk to him about. Where was he when he got the call? Where was he when he got the... Jessie's house at a memorial, consoling her parents and crying with her friends as they all shared memories of the 19-year-old. Daniel Bartelt was actually Jessie's ex-boyfriend. He had been very vocal at the house, with one friend, Jackie, saying in fact he had been doing most of the talking that day. Buck said Daniel had always been around and in the picture. The pair had sat next to each other every day in high school. They dated for several months. With so much in common, their relationship just made a lot of sense to everyone. Both were theater kids. Both played instruments and wrote music together. They even recorded a song together just 2 months before she was killed. She posted it to her YouTube channel. Daniel ended things romantically, but the teens had remained friends. Daniel's parents said he had dropped out of college after one semester. When he returned home, the once jokey, playful, outgoing teen had seemed depressed, subdued, and not his usual self. When Jessie heard he had quit, she was concerned. He was a straight-A student, keen for college, and always had been. So what was going on with him? Daniel was home now, and he was back in the same friendship group. He and Jessie were seeing more and more of each other again. Before long, it was common knowledge among everyone that although Daniel had been the one to end things, he now wanted to rekindle it. But Jessie was happy being single. They were good as friends. When Daniel sat down with detectives to ask him about Melissa, they did not yet know any of this about his connection to Jessie. In his interviews, he was quiet for long periods of time and was not really giving them anything. Detective Joel Clausing asked him to run them through his day on the Friday Melissa was attacked, but he said he could not remember any of the specifics. He had some marks on his hands and arms, but said it had come from working a shift. Another chance was given to tell the truth. He admitted he had actually lost his job a while ago. Well, then the marks did not come from that then, did they? Daniel was silent. He was getting himself caught in lie after lie. Finally, he had to admit what detectives already knew. He went after that girl. So he had attacked Melissa and gave a bizarre motivation for it. I wanted to scare someone because everyone else is so confident. I do not understand it. I need someone to be like me. Detective Clausing said he was clearly very intelligent and very self-aware, but he just made his skin crawl. He was placed under arrest for attacking Melissa, but the interviews were far from over. This was where everything started to fall into place with Jessie's case as well. Detectives asked him where he had been all day. He told them he was at the Blodgett house. They did a double take. Sorry to hear that. Were you close? Daniel hung his head and said he could not believe that someone had raped and murdered her. At that point, Jessie's body was still being examined. No one, including detectives, had any idea she had been raped. This would turn out to be true. She had been sexually assaulted. Daniel Bartelt had just given himself away. When Daniel had been called in from Jessie's house, no one thought anything of it. No one knew about Melissa's case at this point. They assumed it was a routine thing as they worked through Jessie's circles. Joy had even turned to him and said, "Do not worry, Dan. It will be okay. They are going to want to talk to all of Jessie's friends." Daniel turned to his friends and said, "Okay, maybe you can come and pick me up in 30 minutes. He was very confident he would not be there long, but when his friends turned up to get him, officers were waiting outside. "We cannot release Dan. He is being detained." Impossible, everyone thought. Surely there had to be a mistake. Hundreds gathered to mourn the loss of Jessie Blodgett. The entire community paid tribute to Jessie's life at Westside Park. A 19-year-old Hubertus man had been arrested. The local actress was found strangled to death in her home in Hartford. The district attorney expected to file charges, and the suspect would be in court the next day on Wednesday. Jessie's dad, Buck, said, "It is not Dan. He has never been in any trouble at school or the law that we know of. Jessie and Dan sit together at school. He was a straight-A student. They would write songs together, sing together, sing together. He was welcome in our home." He was just over the day after Jessie's murder, sharing hugs and memories and tears with us. Now officially in custody, he was interviewed again, this time as a person of interest in Jessie's case. Daniel admitted to being in Jessie's home in the weeks before she was killed, but he had kept it all quiet. He claimed Jessie had tried to be romantic with him. But as he was in a new relationship, he did not want to admit this. Naturally, detectives were very skeptical. Daniel told them that on the day of her murder, he had been driving around in his parents' car as he was still pretending to have a job. He then stopped at a park. Sure enough, he was captured on surveillance footage there. Police headed right out to look. Fortunately, the bins he was seen walking around were still filled with whatever he had dumped in there. Pulling everything out, they found a huge amount of very damning evidence. A cereal box stuffed with ropes alongside bloody tissues and the same tape used to bind Jessie. A search of his house and room turned up more rope and tape. Both Daniel and Jessie's DNA was found on everything alongside his DNA under her fingernails and the presence of DNA that proved he had raped her. His laptop showed various searches that got more disturbing as they went on. Serial killers by numbers of victims, spree killers, snuff films, and strangulation cases. One video showed a woman being raped, strangled, washed, and put into bed. Exactly what they now knew had happened to Jessie. Detective Clausing said there was really no way to describe how vile and brutal some of these videos were. They also found parts of what seemed to be a novel titled Red is Red by Joseph Bartelt. Joseph was Daniel's middle name. Parts of the novel focused on someone called Jessica and another character called Dee beating someone into a coma using a pillowcase filled with Lego bricks. It was a case as clear-cut as they come. Daniel was charged with 4 felony counts, including 1 count of first-degree intentional homicide in Jessie's case. The other 3 charges related to the attack on Melissa. In total, it was 1 count of first-degree intentional homicide, 1 count of first-degree recklessly endangering safety, and 1 count of false imprisonment. Timing-wise, it seemed Daniel had entered the house around 9 in the morning after Joy and Buck had left for work. He knew the family's schedule, knew his way around, and knew Jessie would be home alone. He brought everything along with him, something which the prosecution would later coin his murder kit. Now all the evidence in Jessie's body had been analyzed. They knew once Daniel was in her room, he had hogtied and gagged her, wrapping tape around her face so the gag would not come out. He then raped and strangled her to death with a rope. He washed her, tried to clean her up, and then put her back into bed like she was asleep. Daniel was someone that not a soul had suspected. He had mourned alongside Jessie's loved ones, gave support to her grieving family, shared the sadness with her friends. Buck recalled that about a week before she was killed, Jessie and Daniel had been at their home alone just playing music. When Joy got home, Daniel had turned to Jessie and said, "What is your mom doing back so early?" At the time, it had struck Joy as a bit weird. Looking back, they think this was perhaps when he first wanted to hurt Jessie, but his plan had fallen through. Daniel was still denying everything and pleaded not guilty, so everyone had to sit through a tough trial. Opening statements started in Daniel's murder trial. Jessie's mom was the first person to take the stand in this trial. The Blodgetts held each other close as prosecutors showed video of Jessie's room that day. It included video of Jessie's body and the marks around her neck. A detective took the stand for the second day in a row to talk about a video found on Daniel's laptop. It was called "Poor Girl Raped and Strangled to Death." Investigators also thought it was telling that on the day Jessie died, it appeared Daniel tried to delete a video of Jessie from his computer. It was called Jessie's Song. Assistant District Attorney Sandra Garnath showed the jurors evidence found at a nearby park where she said Daniel went after the alleged struggle and homicide took place. The defense called it circumstantial evidence. These pieces of evidence alone are not sufficient. There are other reasonable explanations for those. Jessie's family, as classy as ever, said they did not want to respond to him with hate. Jessie's family and Daniel's family were supporting each other. The Blodgetts recognized that 2 children had been lost. Buck said our first reaction was not "we hate this kid," it was "oh my God, what happened to Dan?" There was so much evidence, even his lawyers could not really argue or give an alternative theory. It was just undeniable. We, the jury, find the defendant Daniel Bartelt guilty of first-degree intentional homicide as charged in the information. While that guilty verdict came as no surprise to many people, it did not make it any less emotional in the court. Families from both sides said their hearts were heavy. It is not a good day for anybody. That is how the father of Jessie Blodgett described the verdict after a heartbreaking trial. Daniel Bartelt was charged in the murder of his 19-year-old friend last summer. The guilty verdict came after just 3 hours of deliberations. Buck spoke briefly as he left the courtroom fighting back tears. Nobody won. Dan's family is a beautiful family who provided a loving environment. They are great people. I feel horrible for them today. Defense attorney Gary Schmaus argued evidence may have been contaminated and the state had not proved its case. Schmaus called this case a tragedy for both sides. I just have compassion for both the Blodgett family and the Bartelt family for the very, very difficult ordeal that they have been through. It took the jury just 3 hours to find Daniel guilty of first-degree intentional homicide. He was given life without the possibility of parole. For Melissa's attack, he got a 5-year prison sentence plus 5 years supervision, a sentence which was heavily criticized. Now it was time to hear from the now 20-year-old. Joy and Buck were really hoping for some honesty. Daniel calmly turned to them and said, "Buck, Joy, I cannot give you the answers that you are looking for. You say how you count the days and the hours, and I do too. I have every day. There is no hiding from yourself in a tiny concrete cell. I have a disgustingly innate ability to lie to myself that I have exercised far too many times in my life, but I refuse to hurt someone other than myself by doing that. This jumpsuit that I am wearing, these shackles that I am put in, do not make me guilty. And I know there is evidence that I cannot refute that would make you believe that I am guilty. I know that you feel I may have enjoyed how painful this process was for some of you. The only reason that I went to trial at all is because I was told I would not be allowed to make an Alford plea. To acknowledge that I could not refute the evidence and just accept sentencing without saying that I had done something I had not. If I could have done that, I would not have put any of you through this or my family. Judge Martins, for what you represent, I do not know whether I should fear you or love you. I struggle to understand that any human should be given the ability to condemn his fellow man, but I do know that I pity you. I do not blame you for any of this. I think you have been extremely fair given what you have to work with. I cannot prove that I am innocent to anyone. Not even myself. I cannot prove that Jessie was a beautiful person, though she was, and I still remember her. I cannot prove that a sun that I have not seen for over 400 days still even rises and sets, but I like to believe that it does. Buck, again, I think it is incredible that such ugliness has begotten such beauty, and I have seen that from your entire family. I saw that the day after Jessie died when I was with you. I pray for you, for all of you, and I hope that I believe that someday I will be before a court that will know that my conscience is grieved. I love you and I am so sorry for your loss. Buck addressed Daniel and said, Dan, I forgive you as I have every day since I learned it was you. I believe there is good and bad in every one of us, so I do not demonize or vilify you. To the good in you, I say this, you are forgiven, but you will not know forgiveness until you tell the truth. For 457 days you have lived a lie. As long as you are alive, you still have a chance to own what you did. I hope you take that chance. Oh. As for Jess, she is now happy and free. Dan, I do not think there is in any way on God's green earth that you or many in this room will understand or believe this, but it is true. I forgive you and I love you. Of course, I hate what you did, but that does not mean I cannot forgive and love. Daniel Bartelt appealed his verdict in the Wisconsin Supreme Court, arguing that police used statements he made without a lawyer present, which he said was a violation of his constitutional rights. But the court rejected this. A month after Jessie's murder, 500 people showed up for a vigil. This was where the Love is Greater Than Hate project was born, a nonprofit whose mission is to end violence against girls and women, something that Jessie's parents pour everything into in the hopes to turn a tragedy into something that can change lives and save them. The mission reads, ending interpersonal violence, promoting forgiveness, presencing love. One look in her eye told me that all hope was gone and Jessie was gone too. That is the moment Buck's life changed. A simple exchange with his wife the day his daughter was killed in July of 2013. Now he shares their heartbreak with others. When this happened to Jess, I started self-educating and I had no idea how prevalent this is and how violent it often is. Her family started the Love is Greater Than Hate project. People were just pouring out their hearts to us. It was unbelievable, indescribable. And it is still going on 15 months later. It is crazy. The goal is to talk to schools and groups of people, urging them to take a pledge against male on female violence. The community is rallying together. Out here in the lobby, they are selling these t-shirts and they are hoping that for everyone that is sold, the message spreads a little bit further. You know, every day when I am not on purpose, I am in pain. And when I am doing something and talking about love and forgiveness, then I am good. Buck hopes by sharing Jessie's story, other families will not have to go through a similar pain. Buck said something about his daughter that would later become his mission. This has been a devastating blow, but honey, your strength is in me too, and love will always be stronger than hate. I forgive him every single day, and it is an ongoing practice because I get mad and I think about Jess and I think about what you went through. And it was brutal. Music was her passion. But just before she was murdered, male on female violence had become Jessie's cause. They go into schools, colleges, and prisons and share their story, which they hope will educate people, inspire people, motivate, and ultimately choose love over everything. We are a message organization, not a service organization. The message is simple. End interpersonal violence through love and forgiveness. Buck said his daughter campaigned a lot, so this is fitting. Her last big cause in life was male violence against women. He said she was just fiercely outspoken about that for a year or two before her death. She was a really brave young woman, and she had a lot of causes. Ironically, her last and biggest cause was violence against women, and she tried to tell me about it. I listened, but I did not get it until it happened to her. At Daniel's sentencing, Buck had been given just a few minutes, but spoke some powerful words. 10 minutes. 10 minutes to sum up a life and explain in words to others the impact that the loss of that life has had on me. I should be able to shout out to the world daily until life leaves my body who this beautiful young person was, what she stood for, how deeply she touched so very many, and how she has left behind a powerful legacy of love. Well, I intend to. And In the weeks following her taking, we received over 1,000 cards and letters. Never again will I end a long, hard, stressful day at work with a walk around the block with my girl, talking freely and deeply about everything under the sun. In her final month, she had developed a habit of starting every one of those walks with, "So, how was your day, Dad?" How can I describe for you the pain of this loss? I cannot. It is there in the background and often in the foreground of my life every second. It will never go away. Others tell me that I will adapt to it, learn to function well with it, which I already have, but it will remain there and never go away. I know they are right.